Good afternoon. More reports today around the problems Rand Water has in trying to get enough water to the councils in Gauteng and the provinces around Gauteng. Rand Water has confirmed many times it's taking more water out of the Vaal Dam river system than it's supposed to take. In other words, the National Water Department gives Rand Water a license. Rand Water is exceeding that license. Rand Water also confirming all of its systems are running at full tilt. In other words, it's a bit like a car, really. If you drive a car at over 200 kilometers an hour, it might do it. You have one small problem, you'll suddenly have a huge number of big problems. Professor John Ndiritu is at the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Wits University. Professor, good afternoon to you. We get most of our water for the provinces in Gauteng and around Gauteng from Lesotho. How much water are we actually able to get from Lesotho at the moment using the first phase of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project?
I think it's around 30 cubic meters per second, or around 900 million cubic meters per year. I mean, that's what I think the system is designed for. Whether we get it every year, every moment, I think that's another aspect. And I think some of it also goes through quite a large area that is irrigated, and I think the issue of unlawful water obstructions is quite a challenge, in my understanding.
In other words, some water is taken out of the rivers when it's not supposed to be.
I think there is evidence of that, yes. And I think, yeah.
Okay. What is the limitation? I mean, there's a tunnel system, right? I imagine that's the limitation. There's only so much water you can put through a tunnel.
I don't think that's a limitation, actually. And I think the system is designed to be able to supply adequate water. You know, strategically, I know that's how water resources planning is done. And I think, in my understanding, the issue at the current time is that the second phase of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project has been delayed. I think some documents said it would be completed by 2020, starting 2012. That didn't happen. And I think in 2018, it was, I think, to start supplying water around this time, 2024. That hasn't happened. And I think now it is scheduled to start supplying in 5 years' time. So what that means is that there is quite, a higher risk of us, getting into a quite a tight situation with our water supply, especially if a drought comes. Because all of this is done statistically. So you're saying now the probability of us being in trouble in the next few years because of this delay is quite high, because we are a bit behind time.
Okay, so it costs quite a lot of money to sort this system out, and to do it quickly would cost even more money. Why does it take so long? I imagine there's a lot of building work that needs to be done.
Yes, I think that's usually part of the project planning, part of the funding issues, and if things go as planned, then we should not be behind time. It is part of project planning and implementation. But when then delays happen, I think there could be other issues coming in. And I think it's not just about the money how much money is involved, because that is generally understood. But when you implement a project, you know what will be needed, and that. Yes, I think that's what I would say. I think some delays happened, and it is not unusual, but it has its own implications.
So what does that mean for people in Gauteng then? We're going to have a shortage of water if we have a drought, and statistically we're in El Nino right now as it happens. The chances are we will have a drought in the next 5 years.
Yeah, the probabilities are quite high. But currently, I was actually just checking the state of the system. The reservoir systems for Gauteng was supplying this region. Actually, the broader Gauteng region, including other areas. I think some of the Eskom power plants that I think SASO is also supplied from the same system. And I found it is at 82%. This information is available from the Department of Water and Sanitation website. So it is at 82%, which is not too bad. They just say it is moderately low, but it seems reasonable. But anyway, it's about now projecting into the future. We can't be sure what's going to happen, and therefore that's why the risk is quite high. And I think the implication is that we need to be quite careful with our water use, which is quite a critical issue. I think that's what we need to do as much as we can, wherever one is. Try to preserve water, try not to overuse water. And I think if there are any directions that, we need to start doing some water preservation, don't water your garden during the day or something like that, then, adhering to those aspects is quite important. Those are the aspects I think are quite, they're the practical things we can do to help ourselves.
So it's important to say to everybody that we must reduce the amount of water that we use, and we must. But at the same time, when I say we, I mean sort of government and councils waste a huge amount of water. The global average of unmetered water is around 20%. In other words, that's water that gets lost for leaks or whatever. Every water system has leaks. In Gauteng, the average is 42.5%. In Mogale City, I think it's above 50%. What I'm trying to get to is the best way for us to save water is to fix all the leaks.
Yes, we may not succeed in fixing all the leaks, but we might succeed in reducing that percentage, that proportion to maybe around 10% if you do it very efficiently. Because if you check this data, around the world, you will not find any city that has 0% leakage. I don't have the figures at my fingertips, but I would think if you go up to 10%, that's quite good. And I think I know this has been something that South Africa has been working on for a long time, water demand management, for instance, by reducing the pressure in the systems and also dealing fast with the leakages. When they happen, you don't have to wait for 24 hours, 48 hours before someone comes and, does something about it. But I think there are management challenges, within the water management. There are management challenges and operational challenges, and I think before we deal with these issues are going to arise, and it will be difficult to sustain a reduced level of leakage. But I think it's very good for us to do that, but in a long term and in a strategic manner, in a well-planned manner, not as a response to a crisis, but something that we actually do very properly, very clearly. We monitor and we find that you're actually making, positive changes that you can sustain over time.
There's a lot that needs to be done, and it requires long-term thinking and planning. It requires a concentration on the detail of actually doing it. It requires long-term political will as well. Professor, from what you see happening around us, do you think all of those things are there, or do we need to start preparing for difficult times?
I think we need to do both. We need to prepare for difficult times. Because the indications that climate change is becoming more variable, although, sometimes we say for Southern Africa, it's only the western part of Southern Africa that is likely to be drier. But even on the average, and the other parts of Southern Africa might, get higher rainfalls on the average. But how that rainfall is going to come, whether it will be too heavy, sometimes, and too low rainfall for many, many years, we don't know. So we, of course, need to do what? To do the best we can. And part of it, I think, is our ability to deal with difficult situations in a manner that is the best we can. Because I think there are other issues about the demand itself increasing. So water demand is increasing. The water resources are also coming in, and they come in a staged manner. For instance, the Lesotho Highlands second phase, I think should add what? 225 million cubic meters per year or something. But you see, it comes just as one big step. But before we get it, we need to be able to, be as resilient we can, and I think more or less try to cooperate with each other instead of fighting, in the way we respond to these challenges.
Thank you very much. Indeed, really do appreciate the time. Professor John Ndiritu is at the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Wits University.